Welcome. This podcast is a collaboration of Religica and URI, United Religions Initiative.
Dr. Sadhvi Saraswati is a renowned female spiritual leader in India. She is Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, launched by UNICEF, the world's first alliance of religious leaders for water, sanitation, and hygiene. She is also director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival and serves as vice chair on the United Nations Advisory Council on Religion. Take a listen.
Do you think that an increase in our own sense of spiritual well-being actually makes us see the physical world itself differently?
Does it enable us to see the world differently? Of course. Even the physical world differently? Of course. Because there's an interconnectedness and a oneness and a purpose and a meaning that a spiritual awareness brings us that's not isolated from the world at all, that is actually one with the world, and that awareness is of being one with the world. So when I see the world, it's not so much as objects separate from myself, but rather as part of this divine, perfect oneness that I'm being called upon to recognize and experience and therefore serve and preserve.
There is a kind of just dualism that seems to be so much a part of the human experience in a more popular way that tends to defeat, I think, some of the things you're actually talking about. Not dividing things into pro and con or benefit and adversity, but instead to see that kind of oneness or wholeness or potential for it even in our lives.
It is truly, I believe, the answer to everything that ails us, from personal depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, all of that which ails us deeply personally inside, through violence and wars in our nations, between nations, to drug use, to addictions, to problems in our families, to environmental destruction. That myth of separation is what causes the pain we are suffering from. And so the answer is oneness.
Oneness. So let's talk about water. I'm reading reports recently about the lack of water resources around the world. Some very specific reports of one particular city I have in mind, 10 million, where its water resources are being depleted. How does this impact your work and your sense of urgency around these issues with water?
We've always been urgent. The fact that which we knew 5 years ago was going to happen is now happening is not news. It's happening tragically faster, I think, than people had recognized it was going to happen. But we've known for at least several years, there have been statistics and reports that by 2030, India will have half the water it needs. By 2040, the world will have half the water it needs. And of course, when you think about that logically, you realize, well, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not that up until December 31st, 2029, we will have plenty of water, and somehow overnight, as the sun rises on Jan 1st, 2030, half the water of India is going to disappear, but rather that it will be gradual. And so the fact that this week it's Chennai, and they're saying by 2020, which is tomorrow, 21 Indian cities will have no groundwater left. As horrendous as that sounds, we've had these statistics. And again, if you realize that it's not going to happen overnight, and you realize that by 2030, the nation is going to have half the water it needs, well, of course, this is the path it's going to walk down. It's going to happen.
We know this theoretically. Existentially, we've never maybe encountered this as a species together around the world. How ready are we, in your sense, to address the challenges in front of us?
It depends really what you mean by ready. Do we have the capacity? Absolutely. Do we have the knowledge? Absolutely. Do we have the implementing possibility? Absolutely. Are we prepared to break out of the myth of separation, out of our individual cocoons, out of insisting to continue to live the way that we want to live, to shop the way we want to shop, to vote the way we want to vote? I don't know. But that's the world of faith and of religion. And I deeply believe that this is where our faith is so crucial, because we're either making decisions based on the call of my ego, the call of my desires, the call of my fears, or because my faith says, here's how you should live. And we've seen where ego, fear, desire gets us. And so if we can really harness the power of faith to help us make the right decisions, I pray we will make them. Because there is still time, and I think we can do it, but it absolutely requires not just an infrastructural shift, but a true internal shift in how we live.
20 or maybe even as few as 10 years ago, people may have listened to this conversation and thought to themselves, with due respect to you and others, oh, here they go again. More religion-related folks talking about what's happening in the world, caring about resources above jobs. I mean, what we're talking about runs headlong into a public perception that hasn't fully acclimated or respected the voices and the opinions that you're bringing and others are bringing. And yet here we are in this moment of real potential, of a real possibility for global calamity, not to be an alarmist, but we're looking at all these numbers. What is your confidence that the role of religion, philosophy, spirituality will be taken more seriously and has a role in the public response to what's happening to us?
You know, it's interesting because we have statistics that say 84% of the world's population subscribes to a faith. So it's not that we need to somehow convince people of the validity of faith. And the truth really is, I don't care if people make decisions because their religion tells them to, or because their religion teaches them what being a good person means, and they are committed to being a good person, or that they're committed to being a good person as an atheist. You don't need to be a religious person in order to make the right decisions. I believe in the state of crisis we are in, with the shortage of time we have. If you said to me, what is the most powerful tool we have in our hands to create the type of shift in thought and therefore shift in behavior that we need in order to prevent decimation, not of the planet, by the way, but of us. Mother Earth will survive.
Right.
She'll be fine. She made it through the Ice Age. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's a decimation of us. Faith is that tool. When you have something that 84% of the world is already doing, and you can harness that to change how people behave, that to me feels like your most powerful tool. But again, it doesn't have to come from a place of religion. Religion is not the only thing that teaches us that our sisters and brothers of different races and religions and colors and cultures also deserve food and also deserve water, and to play nice and to share and to not take the whole plate of cookies, but only to take one because there's 10 people sitting around the table. You know, parents and teachers don't have to invoke God when they teach children, when you've got 10 kids sitting around a table and a plate of 10 cookies, that each only gets one. They don't have to say the Bible says.
Right.
They say this is how we live. This is what being a good person means. So even if we didn't look at this from a position of faith, and even if we simply said, okay, shall we go back to kindergarten? We're sitting around a table with 10 people. There's a plate of 10 cookies. Why in the world does any of us think that we are entitled to all 10 of them? And that's what's happening with our water and our land and our resources. If you look at the amount of water resources, the amount of energy resources, the amount of food resources being used simply by animal agriculture, so that people who have the luxury to decide can decide to eat hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets and let the rest of the world starve and let the Amazon get deforested and let the oxygen stop being produced by the trees of the Amazon and the carbon dioxide stop being absorbed by it, and have us lose the water that's being provided by and stored in the Amazon forest because I want to eat hamburgers. Well, I don't have to be a religious person to say, I think maybe those days are over.
Water is like a canary in the coal mine, if you'll pardon the expression. It has a way of reminding us that if we abuse it, other things are being abused in the world. Is that how you see the importance that we need to now attend to water? If we could attend to this, we'll attend to other challenges, but we miss this opportunity with water itself, then we'll have missed our greatest opportunity.
Absolutely. The latter part is 200% true, because if we miss this opportunity, there will be no other opportunities. And that's just the facts. Without water, we cannot live. So we don't get to mess this one up and then try again with the air, try again with our food. Without water, we're gone. We're over. There is no second opportunity to get it right in a different way. So the question at this point becomes, how addicted to being asleep are we? How committed to being asleep are we? And are we going to permit ourselves to wake up in time?
If the listener wants to learn more about you and your organization, where would they go?
They could go to washalliance.org. They could also go to my personal website, which is sadviji.org, sadhviji.org. And if they want to come and visit us in beautiful Rishikesh, India, and stay with us on the banks of the Ganges River in the lap of the Himalayas and do yoga and live yoga and be yoga, they would go to Parmarth, PARMARTH.org. Our ashram is Parmarth Niketan in Rishikesh, and everyone is welcome to come.
If you would like to know more about United Religion's initiative, read stories of interfaith in action, visit www.uri.org. And to learn more about Religica and our allies, take a look at www.religica.org. Thanks.